Today's podcast is an important one. It's a reminder that birth is not only personal, it's political. It's about claiming agency, ensuring your rights, and transforming systems. Hi, I'm Deborah Pascali-Bonaro, host and director of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast. And wherever you're watching or listening, I invite you today especially to get your favorite drink, really sit down and focus, because this is going to fill you with a lot of information and inspiration. I am joined today by a truly inspiring guest, Alejandra Cardenas, a Colombian lawyer with over 20 years of experience in international law, human rights, gender and reproductive rights. Alejandra has led groundbreaking legal strategies at the Center for Reproductive Rights, served as a regional director for the Latin American and East Africa at Women's Link Worldwide, and was a human rights expert with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. She holds degrees from the University Externidad de Colombia and Harvard University, where she was awarded the Irving F. Kaufman Fellowship. Beyond her academic and professional achievements, Alejandra has published widely, lectures internationally on human rights. She also is one of our newest board members at the International Mother-Baby Childbirth Organization, part of the International Childbirth Initiative. That's why Alejandra and I get to work more closely together now. But her story isn't just one of global leadership, of which she's done a lot that you heard in her bio. It's also deeply personal. Despite years of fighting against obstetric violence, when she gave birth to her first child, she found herself at the mercy of a system. So she'll share a bit about that story and how she transformed that with her second birth, where she claimed her power and really experienced the beauty and dignity that birth can hold. So truly, as you settle in, really listen, because there's so many lessons for you personally on making sure that your birth is not only full of safety and care, but that your rights, your autonomy are honored, respected, and you're seen and heard. So Alejandra, I have been so looking forward to having you join us today. I am personally just really enjoying every opportunity I get to soak in on your wisdom and our calls and our global initiatives. So I really thank you for making time today to come share with our orgasmic birth community.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And it is something that I would have never imagined 3+ years ago, when I was just trying to listen to all the podcasts and soak in all the information for my second birth. And I came across your podcast. So I was part of your audience. And here I am today. So it's my pleasure.
Oh, thank you. And can you take us back? I know it's always like thinking back to that first pregnancy and a little bit of how you were feeling and what guided you to make your decisions. And then if you can tell a little bit about that story, how it was for you.
Absolutely. So I was 34 when I had my first baby, who is now a 6-year-old boy. And by then, I am already a pretty seasoned human rights lawyer. I've been involved in the reproductive justice movement since I was a teenager, literally going to protest, like doing all the activism. Then as an adult, as a lawyer, an advocate, going around the world. I was talking about obstetric violence when people would give me looks like I was talking about something insane because it was such a new concept. And just, I had already litigated cases of maternal health that involve obstetric violence. So I thought about myself as a pretty, savvy, like empowered feminist who just like knew everything that had to be known about pregnancy and my rights. And then I got pregnant. And I got pregnant in New York City, which is where we were living at the time. I remember that I wanted to have a midwife just intuitively for the things I knew. I just thought that's going to be better. But the system was set up in a way, and it's still very hard in New York City to access, that I was going to either have to go pay out of pocket, which I was not in a position to do financially, or I was going to have to travel 2+ hours to get to the closest, midwifery center that could take me. And just the thought of doing that, so it would be like almost like a 5-hour trip every time I would have to go to an appointment and come back. Just the logistics of it made me backtrack on that dream. And I went for just your regular OB, all women that people said, it was good. Yeah, I just, got into that wagon. And by the end of the pregnancy, they had me doing all these stress tests because they said that I had too much amniotic fluid. And they made it like I was, in such a high risk. They scared me so much. So they had me doing, I think it was like something crazy, like every 3 days or something like that. I had to go and like do a stress test. And close to my due date, when I was 38 weeks pregnant, actually, the OB that saw me that day said that, turned to my husband, who's a white man, and for the entire appointment, she only talked to him. She didn't even look at me. And she tells him that because of this too much amniotic fluid, she's going to schedule me for an induction the next week. And that if I have not started labor, I'm getting an induction. And I sort of protest. I feel so like disempowered by the whole thing experience. I just couldn't believe that she was not even talking to me. I, at some point in the appointment, I said, I've seen you before and I do have an accent, but I'm fluent in English, right? I don't need an interpreter if that's the reason you're talking to him. And she said, well, it's just a family decision. So I just want him to be very aware that this is what we need to do. And on my way out, I asked somebody at the front desk, I said, what if I just don't want this? And she said, well, you might just need to find another practice then. So I panicked. I thought, who's going to see me? Who's going to take me? Like, it's New York City. Everything, it's a fight to get anything. So I left determined to not get an induction because I knew that was not going to be good. And in my desperation, I found an acupuncturist. And I thought, well, if I'm going to get an induction, then at least I'm just going to get it through acupuncture. So I get the acupuncture, and the whole time I'm thinking, I have a week. I have to do this in a week. So the day of the acupuncture appointment, I started getting like some very faint contractions. And by the next morning, I was having contractions. But then they were just kind of like very intermittent, like that. They would just happen and then they would not happen for a full hour. So I had a doula and I called her. And she said, well, I don't know, like, let's see if they get more continuous and then we'll see. And that night, I was finally in labor, or what I thought was labor, because I was having some regularity in the contractions all night long. And I was like, yes, this is happening. I did it. And then as the sun was rising, my contractions were gone.
Oh,
And to make a long story short, Deborah, I spent 5 days.
5 days.
5 days. And not a single person, because I went every day. I would go to get checked. I would go to get some answers, some help. And at any point, either of the OBs or my doula, to be honest, said, you know what, this is not actually labor. This is prodromal labor. Let's talk
Right.
about what this means. You should rest. You should sleep. Nobody said that. So at night, I was not sleeping because I was having contractions. And then I would spend the rest of the day frantically trying to do something to get the contractions back. So it's finally Friday. They started on Sunday. It's finally Friday. I'm really literally losing my mind because I haven't slept in more than 4 days. And I have been tired from contractions all night. And then
Yes.
all morning trying to walk and do things to make it happen. So on Friday, I go to the hospital, and they Friday morning, and after having spent all night again awake through going through these contractions, and they finally tell me that this is not going to happen. It seems like you've been at this for so long. So they said, why don't we just give you an epidural and see what happens? Honestly, at that point, I just wanted to sleep.
I'm sure.
I just felt so defeated. I felt like my body had failed me. I felt like I had failed my baby. I didn't know that this is a thing that could happen. Nobody ever, like, I took the prenatal course. I have never heard of this happen. And as I said, like, they saw me so many times. Nobody ever said, this is sometimes a thing that happens, and the opposite of what you're doing is what you should be doing. Go rest, and how can we actually help you rest? So when they did that, I had to basically, there at that moment in Mount Sinai in New York City, you had the option. This is not even an option now, but you had the option that if you had no interventions, you could give birth on the floor where midwives could see you. But if you had any kind of interventions, then you were no longer able to do that, and you had to just let the hospital handle it through the OBs. So I was tired, and I said, yes, just drug me. I need to sleep. And I was never past 5 centimeters, never. When I woke up, they said, well, you need Pitocin because nothing is happening. And at that point, I was just like, sure, let's get the baby out, because I was so tired. And so that happened. And 3 hours later, I was still at 5, because, of course, this whole time they have kept me on a bed, right? I have not moved at all.
Right.
And yeah, one of the doctors from the practice came, and she said, let's just accept defeat. You need a C-section. And I was just like, sure. Just, like, I cannot even think right now. So whatever, just do it. So I had a C-section, which is exactly what I didn't want. And I brought him home, and it was fine. Luckily, I was able to breastfeed very successfully. At least that my doula was very supportive and helpful in making sure that we had the skin to skin, and just kept going that right away. But I felt like something was wrong with the whole experience, and it took me time to process it and learn about what had happened to me, and just feel betrayed by the whole thing, right? Like the pressure to do something I didn't want to do, that lack evidence to be necessary, just the lack of information, the lack of support, the fact that I was not being treated like the patient, really. They thought that my husband was actually a voice of reason who they have to address and scare, by the way. So yeah, I had to go through a grieving process and just think, wow, I thought this didn't happen to women like me. I thought that it happened to women who had no awareness of the rights, like no awareness of just obstetric violence and just disrespect and abuse. But it did happen to me. It did happen to me. The system failed me, and I was just trapping it.
Are you curious about enhancing pleasure and easing discomfort in labor? Orgasmic Birth and Dame present the Pleasure Vibe Fin, a waterproof vibrator designed to empower your journey through pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Boost your oxytocin, ease discomfort naturally, and transform your birth into an empowered and even orgasmic experience. Plus, support postpartum healing and reconnect with your body. Are you ready to embrace the power of pleasure? Click below, learn more, and start your transformation today. Truly, right? I feel a heaviness as I hear your words, and to know how you were disrespected right from the beginning, not speaking to you, not looking, listening, hearing you, but deferring to your husband. But also that pressure to get into
Mm,
labor at 38 weeks, 39 weeks, which we know most first babies don't even come on their own till after 40 weeks, right? So you were trying
exactly.
at such a hard time in 5 days. Oh my goodness. You needed rest more than anything during that period. So, I mean, you did amazing with what you were given, with the circumstances to have come through it, right? And given birth to your babe, um, even
Yeah.
though it wasn't the way that you wanted. But so
Yeah.
I'm glad I hear that you processed after. I have to ask this. Did you ever have a conversation with the physician or the physicians to let them know how you were feeling after?
They said they had no patience for me. And you know how most of those appointments go? They just want you in and out in like less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that my doctor just kept saying, well, it just sometimes it's not meant to happen. You had too much amniotic fluid. Like that was it was you had everything against you because you had too much amniotic fluid. But the truth is that we will never know because I had such a healthy pregnancy and I just forced my body to start something that my body was not ready to start. Then when it
No.
started in the way that it did, I was not supported to rest. Like the whole thing was just
Yeah.
a trap
Yeah. It,
to end in a C-section.
and I hear you on a trap because I feel like that is the word, right? You were
Mm-hmm.
you were set
Mm-hmm.
up. So let's move.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you took time to process, and it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you did a lot of work to heal. And what
Mm-hmm.
was the time frame till you were pregnant again? How much time
Mm-hmm.
passed?
um close to 3 years. My son was 3.5 when my daughter was born.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I was ready to go for a second one. And the moment I became pregnant, I thought, never again. This time I'm going to learn everything that is to learn about pregnancy and childbirth, and I'm going to find supportive providers. And it was interesting to me because I have to say, in that time frame, we moved out of the city and we moved to Ohio, and I had all these preconceptions about Ohio just because that's what the preconceptions that you learn from living in one of the coasts. But it was very easy for me to get access to midwifery care here, just because Ohio State has a big midwifery program, and they do let the midwives kind of run the show for the most part. And it was not filled with all these requirements of like, if you accept this, then you no longer get the midwife, or you know. So yeah, fast forward, I'm pregnant again. I am determined to be the protagonist of my story this time, to not let anyone pressure me. um and I love the midwives I had access to. Shout out to them because they do are doing amazing work, and I will always be referring people to them, and I love them. They do are trying to practice to the best of their abilities in a very patient-centered way, very respectful. I have to say, though, it's not completely detached from the pressures of the system. Towards the end of the pregnancy, they also wanted me to start again on this stress test. This time, there was no excess amniotic fluid. It was just because of my age. Um, and I get this call from one of the people who run, the whole thing, like the administrative side of things. And she just calls me casually to schedule this thing that I have not discussed with my midwife. And I said, why? Like, can you? And then she throws very casually, but in a very poignant way, that, there's this risk of death because of your age. So you need this stress test. And this time they were dealing with a very different version of me. So I said, I'm not going to schedule that. Thank you very much. And you shouldn't be telling people, like making these phone calls and scaring people. So this time I knew better. And I just basically gave her a lecture on how she was like overinflating is even an understatement, right? Like the risk of death that is going to be prevented by these fancy exams that they want me to go and do every couple of days. So yeah, I said, you're being irresponsible. Like, I have more risks of any other thing happening to me before I, winning the lotteries, like close to how much I'm at the risk of death just because of my age right now. Like,
Right.
I am so healthy, and if I just knew. I said, if I just go through this is gonna stress me out.
That's right. So wise of you, right? I keep thinking back, and Robin Lim, great midwife and friend, she says they offer scare instead of care. And that
It's
scare then impacts us. And if we don't have anxiety, we get it from this, right?
exactly. And after that, I wrote a letter to the entire midwifery practice, just saying, like, this is not okay. You should not be okay with this. And my midwife basically said she agreed with me. She said, you're making a very rational decision. There's just things that we cannot control, right? Like that. And I would not be surprised if it's just because there's an economic incentive behind just sending women to get all these extra tests that they don't need, and that again will just make you really nervous. But anyways, I finally, when the day came on its own, no, no taking like, shakes with castor oil or like acupuncture, none of the things, just it happened. And it was beautiful. it was not it was not void of interventions, actually. I'll go into the details in a second, but it was it would happen absolutely on my terms, and it was completely empowering and beautiful. So I started having contractions on Thursday late at night, like 9 p.m. And this time I knew like this might happen for days, because they did say like once you have prodromal labor, maybe you will have prodromal labor again. And I was feeling very confident because we had a plan. Like we talked about this at length, and we had a plan for how I would still rest and we would just manage it. So I managed to get sleep. The next day I went for an appointment. So we actually were prepared for this to last for days and days. And I went and got a massage, and that's when the construction started getting a little more serious. Then I came home and I labored with my mom here, my doula, my son, and my husband. And it was great. Um, my son was just like rowing my back and singing to me. It was so
Oh,
beautiful. Like it was just, my family just nurturing me and being sweet and gentle. Um, and by 7 p.m., I was like, I think this is real. Like, I think this is not prodromal. I think this is feeling like very intense, and it just keeps happening, and like it's just getting a cadence, a rhythm. Um, and I went in the tub, and I was just again feeling really great. Um, but also I started feeling like I was pushing, and I was really not trying to push. So my doula just we talked about it, and she said, let's just go. So we went, and I was actually just 5 centimeters. And that kept going. And maybe at like 1 a.m., the midwife says, you're really swollen. Like you're pushing without, I know you don't want to push because you're at 5 centimeters. And I really was not trying to push, but it was every time I would get a contraction, I was pushing. So I got really, really swollen. And by 3 a.m., she came and she said, I know you don't want to hear this, but maybe you do need an epidural just to see if it just comes down, like it's too inflamed right now.
yes.
And that's not going to be good for you. So we discussed, we just like, it was so good because through the contractions, we would like pause, and she would keep giving me information, alternatives. We would just like explore all the options. And finally I said, okay, I feel good doing that. Let's just get an epidural and see what happens. So the anesthesiologist came, and we agreed that it was going to be like the bare minimum, like that it was just to give me a chance to go back to a place where we would have a better chance, but not that I would stop feeling or anything. So that's what we did, and that allowed me to sleep, because the contractions would woke me up, but I was calm and not pushing anymore. And then I was at 8. By 7 in the morning, I was at 8. And because the epidural was wearing down, I started like getting stronger contractions again. So we thought, this is it. We're She was so excited. And then Deborah, it didn't happen for another 7 hours.
Oh,
I was at
no.
8 for 7 hours.
Wow. And that's a really intense time.
It is, but you know what? I will always be so grateful for this model of care, because nobody blink. Nobody pressured me. Nobody made me feel bad that I was kind of stuck at 8. They were just like, let's just keep changing positions, have some water, listen to some music. And at noon, my doula finally said, let's just get the rebozo out. And she got that thing out and just
I
did the
love it.
shimmy. And you know what? When she did the shimmy, I was like, "Oh, this is like dancing." Like I love dancing. We are huge dancers in Colombia. It's very ingrained in the culture. And I was like, I can do this, like hip shake, even without the rebozo. So every time she was tired, I would do it, and then boom, half an hour later, I was pushing, and she came out 15 minutes later. My husband grabbed her because we also talk about this, like we want him to grab her when she's coming out. Another thing that I love is that they put the mirror in front of me, and I know that for some people that doesn't work. For me, it worked wonders. I was just so excited, so overjoyed, just seeing the hair first, because she came out with a full set of hair. And I just loved it. I love seeing the whole time, seeing her being born. It was not just feeling it, but seeing it. To me, it was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, she came out, he cut the cord, put her on me, started breastfeeding immediately, just like it was wonderful. It was beautiful. And I was just like the whole thing. I was like I was so happy seeing the cord, seeing what's happening with the cord and pushing the placenta out. I wanted to see a placenta. I was just so happy. Like I love the whole thing. I truly was on cloud nine. I was in ecstasy. I don't know that I had necessarily an orgasmic birth, but I did in the sense that I was just like, I was, my whole body, my whole soul was just like overjoyed. And everybody in the room, I just could feel the energy. Everybody was just so happy.
That is orgasmic, right?
Okay, then I did.
Or,
I didn't
or
know that that was the
yes,
definition.
orgasmic is first of all defined by each person, but it's really,
Okay.
I define it birthing in your power, in your decisions
Yes.
with joy.
Yes. Yes. It was all of those things.
Yeah.
I was just crying with happiness, and I was just so thankful to the universe, because even though I will always feel a little sad that I didn't give that to my son, I feel like it was also in a way for him, because he was such a part of the experience too. So it was beautiful, and now I'm like, to cry.
I
Sorry.
know. No, don't be sorry, because our stories are so deeply part of us and so personal. And I want to highlight and say congratulations, because that was also a vaginal birth after cesarean. For those listening who don't
Yes.
know, that's the acronym also of VBAC. And so, really powerful. You have such a personal journey of your own lessons, of your own claiming your body and your power, and navigating a system that is a system there intending for safety, but not realizing so often the way they overwhelm us with it,
Yeah.
with scare.
Oh, can I add something else that I think is
Please.
important for listeners? When before I started pushing, the some meconium came out, and again, the difference of having someone who's on your corner and not trying to scare you. The midwife was so calm. She said, let's get like again the reading on the heartbeats and everything. She said, everything seems totally fine. And you know that this is something that sometimes happen, and doesn't mean at all that the baby is going to have any negative outcomes out of this. Like the readings are all telling us that the baby's fine. We're just gonna push this baby out. She did have to call the pediatrician on the floor because the policy of, obliges her to have them. So it's funny because we had like these three people that were called, in case there was an emergency. And they it was funny because I could see their faces when they got in the room. Their faces were like somebody who's like ready for something bad to happen. But the energy of in the room was so joyous and like excited that my baby came out. She cries, and the midwife immediately turns and she says, "And you can leave."
Oh, I I have to say I love your midwife just from
I
hearing
love her.
her words and
I
what
love her so much.
and what an impact she had on you, right? The words that you hear, the care that you feel, that you're honored and respected, right? So I know people that are listening and kind of got a lot of lessons from your two different birth stories. But what would you say to someone on how they can kind of stay in their power? What would you
Mm.
say? Like, what would you even say looking back to your younger self in that first pregnancy? What do you wish you knew? Here you were, a human rights attorney, and
I know.
right? No, but it's so important to hear because all of us are vulnerable within the system.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that unfortunately, unless you find a team of people who are really there to cater to your empowerment and to your experience, being you the protagonist, and not pressure by I have to get these many patients out today, not pressure by the policies that incentivize certain interventions and so on and so forth. So that is unfortunately rare, right? Like, it's not the care that we have most access to. It's the care that you actually had to fight and like dig to find. So I think that for most people, information is power, and that I was lacking so much information the first time. So I think there are so many great resources out there these days, and that's actually how I found your podcast, for example. But evidence-based birth, like all these websites and resources that allow you, like every time you hear something, go back to a resource like that and actually check what's the science on it. What are the best standards of care? Um, I had a package, a little book that I made for myself, and I was carrying like, their WHO recommendations for avoiding a C-section, like ACOG statements and all of these things. Which it's crazy that you have to get yourself like a master's class in all of these things to go through birth, but it is what it is, and information is power. It will allow you to differentiate scaremongering and fear mongering, and like just detect the red flags. And that's important for you to advocate for yourself. Yeah.
Great advice. And Alejandra, I love you're an amazing writer. We'll put some of your articles and links in the show notes. But when you talk about midwifery and even in your own journey, right? You searched for
Yeah.
midwives and had barriers the first time, but found midwives that really supported you the second time. Can you just talk to people about why the midwifery model of care is so vital?
The midwifery model of care is so vital, first of all, because it's proven to be very effective and significantly better actually than just your typical OB hospital setting model. And this has been proven by plenty of studies around the world that reduces maternal mortality, maternal morbidity, but also it's patient centered. So their role is to respect your autonomy, your agency, and give you at all times the information on the risks and the alternatives of everything so you can make the decisions and be the protagonist of your own experience. And I feel like as I said, sometimes we get in our heads that this is the ideal birth or this other is the ideal birth. It's my experience by now from work and everything that birth can go in so many directions. It's impossible to really say you're going to have this exact experience and for that to be the thing that happens. But I think that whatever path it takes, if you are respected and if you are feeling that you were really listened to and you were the one who called the shots and you were care in the act of making those decisions, then you're going to have a good experience. Because that's what really dehumanizes us, is that we are treated like a cow that is being managed, right? And so this is what the midwifery model of care does. It really is patient centered in that way, and it's effective. It actually gives the best outcomes.
Yes. Wonderful words. And I'm going to ask, I know we're running a little bit long, but I hope everybody is enjoying. You just have so much wisdom. I'd love to ask if you have one more tip for someone that's pregnant, maybe whether it's first or second pregnancy or whatever. What would you recommend to them?
Besides information and a good doula, if they can, I think that's important too, because if you listen to my story, it was the doula who pulled the rebozo trick, which the midwives had not thought about, or maybe they were not trained on. um, these things are so important, like how you position and move your body through childbirth is so important. Do not let people just keep you in bed, please, and
Yes.
not moving.
Great wisdom. So I know people that are listening, I'm sure are going to say, how could they reach out to you, follow you? Where's the best places that people can follow? And we'll put some of your articles in, but I know you have many.
So they can find me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to answer messages and get in contact with people who want to chat more about this or just discuss the policy and legal side of this, to which I've done research on, right? How legal and policy, um, it's actually disabling us from being empowered during pregnancy and childbirth, but also how it makes it really hard for patient-centered models of care to thrive.
Thank you so, so much for joining us today, for sharing your personal stories as well as your incredible wisdom. I can't thank you enough for being such an advocate out there for all people that are birthing all over the world to have their human rights honored and respected to birth in their way. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Deborah. And I meant what I said. I found your podcast when I was pregnant with my second. And it was just so beautiful. And it just gave me a lot of courage and like knowing that it could be better. And it was. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you to all our listeners. We really appreciate that you're joining us. We hope that if we're inspiring you, please rate and review our podcast. The more ratings we have, the more people we reach, and hopefully together we can inspire others. So please share with friends and colleagues. And we hope you'll join us next week for the next episode of the Orgasmic Birth Podcast.